Robert Morrison, a Dallas millionaire, watches helplessly as his 8-year-old twin daughters are given up by the country's best doctors. Both were born blind with no hope of cure. After spending millions on useless treatments, his wife abandons him, leaving only him and the girls in the empty mansion. Maria, the humble 45-year-old Mexican housekeeper, decides to take desperate action using an ancient herbal recipe from her healer grandmother. What happens in the following weeks defies all modern medicine. The discovery she makes not only saves the girls, but reveals a family secret that had been hidden for decades. If this story touches your heart, please hit the like button and tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Your engagement helps us continue bringing real stories of triumph that inspire thousands of people every day. The morning of March 15, 2019, started like any other nightmare for Robert Morrison. He stood in the marble foyer of his Highland Park mansion, watching his daughters Emily and Sophie navigate the familiar hallway with practiced precision, their small hands trailing along the wall. At 8 years old, they had never seen a sunrise, never witnessed their father's proud smile, never glimpsed the world that surrounded them with such devastating beauty. "Daddy, is Mommy coming back today?" Emily asked, her voice carrying that innocent hope that broke Robert's heart daily. Robert knelt beside his daughter, his 52-year-old frame heavy with exhaustion. "I don't know, sweetheart. She needs some time." The truth was far more brutal. 3 weeks ago, after the final consultation at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Richardson had delivered the words that shattered their family. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison. We've exhausted every option. Your daughters will never see. The congenital blindness is complete, and there's no medical intervention that can help them." That night, Victoria Morrison packed her bags. "I can't do this anymore, Robert," she whispered through tears. "I can't watch them struggle every day, knowing there's no hope. I can't pretend to be strong when I'm dying inside." She left before dawn, taking nothing but her clothes and leaving behind 2 little girls who still asked for their mother every morning. Now Robert stood in the kitchen, mechanically preparing breakfast, while Maria Gonzalez, their housekeeper of 7 years, moved quietly around the house. At 45, Maria had become more than hired help. She was the steady heartbeat of their crumbling home. Her weathered hands spoke of decades of hard work, but her eyes held a kindness that the girls gravitated toward, like flowers seeking sunlight. "Senor Morrison," Maria said softly, approaching with careful steps. "The girls, they need routine. They need to feel normal." Robert turned, his eyes rimmed red from another sleepless night. "Normal? Maria, look at us. My wife is gone. My daughters will never see. I've spent $3 million on treatments that led nowhere. What's normal about any of this?" Maria moved closer, her voice gentle but firm. "Normal is love, senor. Normal is not giving up. Normal is believing when others cannot." As if summoned by their conversation, Emily and Sophie appeared in the doorway. Their identical faces turned toward the sound of voices. They had learned to read the world through sound, touch, and the subtle changes in air that preceded movement. These adaptations amazed Robert daily, even through his grief. "Maria, can you read to us today?" Sophie asked, her small voice carrying across the vast kitchen. "Of course, mija. But first, breakfast. Your father made your favorite, pancakes with strawberries." The girls smiled, the first genuine happiness Robert had seen in weeks. As they sat around the kitchen island, Maria began telling them stories of her childhood in Mexico, painting pictures with words that their minds could visualize. Robert watched, marveling at how effortlessly Maria brought light into their darkness. But something was different about Maria today. There was a tension in her shoulders, a distant look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Throughout the morning, Robert caught her staring at the girls with an intensity that seemed almost calculating. During the girls' afternoon nap, Maria disappeared for over an hour. Robert found her in the garden, kneeling beside the herb patch she had planted years ago, her hands working the soil with unusual urgency. She was muttering something in Spanish, words too quiet for him to understand. "Maria, is everything all right?" She startled, dirt flying from her hands. "Si, senor, just tending the plants." But as Robert walked away, he noticed she'd been harvesting specific herbs, ones she had never paid attention to before. Later that evening, as he tucked the girls into bed, Emily grabbed his hand. "Daddy, Maria smells different today, like the medicine doctors use." But sweeter. Robert dismissed it as his daughter's imagination, but as he closed their bedroom door, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was shifting in their household. Maria had been acting strangely for days, making quiet phone calls in Spanish, staying late to tend her garden, and asking unusual questions about the girl's medical history. That night, unable to sleep, Robert wandered the halls of his empty mansion. From the kitchen window, he saw a light in Maria's small apartment above the garage. Her silhouette moved back and forth, and occasionally he caught glimpses of her bent over what looked like books or papers spread across her table. What was Maria planning, and why did her recent behavior fill him with equal parts hope and terror? The next morning brought unseasonable warmth to Dallas, and with it a phone call that would change everything. Robert was reviewing financial reports in his study when Maria knocked softly on the door. "Senor Morrison, may I speak with you?" Her formal tone immediately put him on alert. In 7 years, Maria had never requested a private conversation. She entered carrying a worn leather journal, its pages yellowed with age and covered in handwritten Spanish text. "This belonged to my grandmother, Elena Gonzalez," Maria began, her fingers tracing the journal's cover with reverence. "She was what you would call a curandera, a healer. In our village in Oaxaca, people came to her when doctors could do nothing more." Robert set down his papers, studying Maria's face. She seemed different, older somehow, as if carrying the weight of generations on her shoulders. "Maria, I appreciate your family history, but please, senor, let me finish." Her voice carried an authority he had never heard before. "Last night I called my cousin in Mexico. She still lives in our grandmother's house, still keeps her remedies. I told her about Emily and Sophie." Maria opened the journal, revealing pages covered in detailed drawings of plants, accompanied by notes in flowing Spanish script. "My grandmother treated 7 children with similar conditions, all of them. All of them were able to see again." Ooh! Robert felt his heart skip, then immediately forced himself to remain rational. "Maria, I've consulted with the best ophthalmologists in the world. Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, specialists in Switzerland. They all said the same thing. Congenital blindness like the girls have cannot be reversed. With respect, senor, your doctors never met Elena Gonzalez." Maria flipped through pages until she found a specific entry. The drawing showed a plant Robert didn't recognize, with detailed notes about preparation and dosage. "This is called Hierba de la Vista, the herb of sight, combined with specific prayers, specific timing with the moon phases, and—" She paused. Meeting his eyes, "specific belief it can restore what was taken." Robert stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, he could see Emily and Sophie in the garden with their mobility instructor, learning to navigate obstacles. They moved with such grace, such adaptation to their world, that it broke his heart daily. "Maria, I can't. I won't give them false hope. They've been through enough disappointment." "I'm not asking you to give them hope," Maria replied firmly. "I'm asking you to give me permission to try something that costs nothing, but might give them everything." She closed the journal and looked directly at him. "Senor Morrison, what if I told you that your daughter's blindness might not be genetic? What if I told you that someone who truly loved them might be able to heal what others cannot?" The weight of her words settled over the room like dust. Robert turned from the window, studying Maria's face for any sign of delusion or false promises. Instead, he saw something he hadn't witnessed in months: absolute, unshakable faith. "What exactly are you proposing?" Maria opened her purse and withdrew a small cloth bag. "The herbs arrived this morning from Mexico. My cousin gathered them during the new moon, blessed them according to our grandmother's instructions. The treatment would take 21 days, applied as eye drops every morning and evening, combined with specific dietary changes and," she hesitated, "certain rituals that honor the healing spirits." "Rituals? Nothing harmful, Senor. Prayers, candles, offerings of gratitude to the earth that provides the medicine. My grandmother always said that healing required 3 elements: the right remedy, the right intention, and the right love." Robert found himself torn between desperate hope and protective skepticism. "And if it doesn't work? Then we will have lost nothing but 3 weeks. But if it does work," Maria's voice softened, "your daughters will see your face for the first time. They will see sunsets and flowers and the love in your eyes that they have only felt with their hearts." As if sensing the gravity of the moment, Emily and Sophie's laughter drifted in from the garden. They were playing some variation of hide and seek, using their enhanced hearing to locate each other among the rose bushes. Their joy in such simple pleasures made Robert's chest ache with love and loss. "There's something else," Maria continued quietly. "My grandmother's journal mentions that blindness like your daughters have sometimes comes from trauma that happened before birth. Trauma that affects the mother during pregnancy, which then affects the children." Robert felt the blood drain from his face. "What kind of trauma?" Maria closed the journal, her expression unreadable. "The kind that requires forgiveness to heal. The kind that connects to secrets people carry for years." Before Robert could ask what she meant, Emily's voice called from the garden, "Daddy, come feel how soft these roses are." Maria stood, placing the herb bag on Robert's desk. "I'll be in the kitchen preparing lunch. Take your time to decide, but remember, the new moon cycle begins tomorrow. If we're going to try this, we need to start then." She paused at the door, turning back with eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. "Senor Morrison, sometimes the greatest miracles come not from doctors or hospitals, but from the simple love of someone who refuses to give up." After she left, Robert picked up the cloth bag. It smelled of earth and herbs, of distant mountains and grandmother's gardens. Inside, he could see dried leaves and what looked like flower petals, all carefully preserved. His rational mind screamed that this was impossible, that he was grasping at supernatural straws. But his father's heart whispered something different. What if Maria was right? What if love could accomplish what science could not? That afternoon, as he watched his daughters navigate their world with such courage, Robert Morrison made a decision that would either save his family or break what remained of their hearts. The decision came to Robert at 3 a.m., when he found himself standing in the girls' bedroom doorway, watching Emily and Sophie sleep. In the pale moonlight filtering through their curtains, they looked so small, so vulnerable. Emily had kicked off her blankets, and Sophie clutched her favorite stuffed elephant, their faces peaceful in dreams where perhaps they could see. He thought about Victoria, who had abandoned ship when things became too difficult. He thought about the dozens of doctors who had looked at his daughters like medical curiosities rather than children. And he thought about Maria, who had spent 7 years loving these girls not despite their blindness, but completely and unconditionally. By morning his mind was made up. "Maria," he called as she prepared breakfast, "we'll try your grandmother's remedy." Her face lit up with such radiant joy that Robert felt his first spark of genuine hope in months. "Gracias, Senor Morrison. You won't regret this decision. But we need ground rules," Robert continued firmly. "First, We don't tell the girls what we're attempting. I won't have them disappointed again if this doesn't work. Second, if there are any adverse reactions, any at all, we stop immediately. And third, he paused, meeting her eyes, you need to explain to me exactly what these rituals involve. Maria nodded eagerly. The eye drops, we will tell them, are vitamins for their eyes, to keep them healthy. The dietary changes, more fresh vegetables, less processed sugar, we can say are for their overall health. The rituals, she smiled gently, they will think we are having fun with candles and pretty stones. That afternoon, Maria began the preparation process. Robert watched from the kitchen doorway as she carefully measured dried herbs into small glass bowls, grinding some with a marble mortar and pestle that she claimed belonged to her grandmother. The scents that arose were complex, earthy, floral, with underlying notes of something medicinal but pleasant. This one, Maria explained, holding up a dried leaf, is called bright eye in English. In Mexico, we call it ojo de luz. It grows only at high altitudes, where the air is thin and the sun is strong. She placed it in the mortar. This one is Tears of the Virgin. It blooms only during certain moon phases and must be gathered at dawn. Robert found himself fascinated despite his skepticism. And you really believe these plants can restore sight? My grandmother restored the sight of 7 children over 40 years, Maria replied, continuing her methodical preparation. But, Senor, the plants alone are not enough. The healing must come from love, from faith, from the willingness to believe in something greater than what we can see with our eyes. As she worked, she told him stories about her grandmother Elena, who had been born with the gift of healing, about the children who had come to their small village, led by desperate parents who had exhausted all other options, about the 21-day rituals that combined ancient knowledge with pure intention. But why 21 days? Robert asked. The number of renewal, Maria explained. 21 days to break old patterns, to establish new ones. The cells in the eyes, they regenerate in cycles. My grandmother believed that if you can convince the body to remember how to see, if you can heal whatever blocks the vision, the eyes will follow. That evening, Maria called Emily and Sophie into the living room for what she termed their new evening routine. She had arranged cushions in a circle around the coffee table, where dozens of small candles flickered in glass holders. The girls' faces were illuminated by the warm light, their expressions curious and delighted. We're going to play a special game, Maria announced. A game about gratitude and healing. Every night for the next 3 weeks. We're going to thank the earth for all the good things in our lives, and we're going to send loving thoughts to every part of our bodies. Sophie clapped her hands. Like when we thank God for our food. Exactly like that, Mija. But tonight, we're going to thank our eyes for all the ways they help us, even if they don't see pictures like other people's eyes do. Robert watched in amazement as Maria guided the girls through what was essentially a meditation disguised as a game. They placed their small hands over their eyes and whispered thanks for their enhanced hearing, their sensitive touch, their ability to navigate the world through senses beyond sight. The ritual was beautiful, peaceful, and surprisingly moving. After the girls were in bed, Maria prepared the first batch of eye drops. The liquid was clear with just a hint of green and smelled like fresh spring rain with undertones of flowers Robert couldn't identify. Tomorrow morning we begin, she said, holding up the small glass dropper bottle. 2 drops in each eye, morning and evening for 21 days, along with prayers, good food, and more love than they've ever experienced. Robert took the bottle, surprised by how normal it looked. Maria, what if this doesn't work? She placed her hand over his, her touch warm and reassuring. Then we will have spent 21 days loving them completely, feeding them well, and teaching them that they are worthy of miracles. What could be wrong with that? That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He found himself thinking about Maria's earlier comment about trauma before birth affecting children. Victoria had been stressed during her pregnancy. They both had been. His business was struggling, they were fighting frequently, and there had been that terrible car accident when she was 7 months along. Victoria had been shaken, but physically unharmed, and the doctors assured them the babies were fine. But what if that trauma had somehow affected the girl's development in ways no one understood? What if Maria's grandmother had insights that modern medicine couldn't grasp? As dawn approached, Robert made another decision. Whether or not the herbs worked, Maria was right about one thing. His daughters deserved 21 days of complete love, attention, and hope. They deserved to feel that they were worthy of miracles. And if miracles were possible, maybe it was time he started believing in them again. Day 1 of the treatment began with spring rain pattering against the mansion's windows, creating a symphony of sound that Emily and Sophie found enchanting. Robert watched nervously as Maria approached the girls' breakfast table with the small dropper bottle hidden in her apron pocket. "Good morning, my beautiful girls," Maria said warmly. "Today we start taking special eye vitamins to keep your eyes very healthy and strong." Sophie tilted her head curiously. "Will they taste yucky?" "No, Mija. They don't go in your mouth. Just 2 tiny drops in each eye, like when the doctor checks your eyes, remember?" Robert held his breath as Maria gently tilted Emily's head back and carefully placed 2 drops in each eye. The liquid was absorbed almost instantly, leaving no residue or discomfort. Emily blinked a few times, then smiled. "It feels cool and tingly," she reported, "like when rain touches my face." Sophie received her drops next, giggling at the sensation. "Mine tickles. Can we have the drops again tonight?" "Every morning and every evening for 3 weeks, Maria confirmed, shooting Robert a meaningful look. The first hurdle was cleared. The girls accepted the treatment without fear or resistance. Over the next few days, Robert found himself studying his daughters' faces for any sign of change. Did Emily turn her head toward light sources more often than usual? Did Sophie seem more aware of movement in her peripheral vision? Or was he simply seeing what he desperately wanted to see? Maria, meanwhile, had transformed their daily routine into something magical. Breakfast now included fresh herbs from her garden, claiming they were brain food to help the girls think better. Lunch featured colorful vegetables arranged in patterns that she described in vivid detail, helping the girls visualize their meals. Dinner became an exploration of textures and flavors, with Maria encouraging them to see their food through taste and smell. The evening rituals grew more elaborate. Maria had created what she called their gratitude circle in the living room, with soft cushions arranged around a low table decorated with crystals, flowers from the garden, and candles of different colors. Each night, they would sit together and practice loving our bodies. "Tonight, we send extra love to our eyes," Maria would say, guiding the girls to place their hands gently over their closed eyelids. "We thank them for protecting us, for crying happy tears and sad tears, for helping us sleep peacefully." Robert found these sessions oddly therapeutic for himself as well. The quiet meditation, the gratitude practice, the gentle focus on healing rather than illness. It was the first time in months that their home felt peaceful rather than tragic. By day 5, Robert noticed the first real change, though it had nothing to do with vision. Both girls seemed more confident, more joyful. They laughed more easily, moved through the house with increased assurance, and began asking fewer questions about when their mother would return home. It was as if Maria's unwavering faith in their healing was somehow strengthening their spirits. "Daddy," Emily said during their Thursday afternoon walk through the neighborhood, "I feel different." Robert's heart skipped. "Different how, sweetheart?" "Happier. Like something good is growing inside me." Sophie nodded vigorously. Me too. Like when flowers grow in Maria's garden, but inside my chest instead. That evening, as Robert helped Maria clear the dinner dishes, he couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. Maria, is it normal for the girls to feel different so early in the treatment? Maria paused in her dishwashing, a small smile playing at her lips. Healing begins in the heart before it reaches the eyes, she said quietly. My grandmother always said that you cannot heal the body without first healing the spirit. The girls, they are learning to believe they are worthy of wholeness. And what about me? Robert asked, surprising himself with the vulnerability in his voice. Am I healing too? Maria turned to face him fully, her dark eyes warm with compassion. Signor Morrison, you have been carrying guilt that is not yours to bear. The girl's blindness, your wife leaving, the pain your family has endured. None of these things happened because you failed them. Sometimes life brings challenges that are meant to teach us about love, about faith, about what really matters. She dried her hands on her apron, then continued, Your daughters don't need you to fix everything. They need you to love them exactly as they are, while still believing they can become everything they're meant to be. That night, as Robert tucked the girls into bed, Sophie grabbed his hand with unusual intensity. Daddy, I had a dream last night. Tell me about it, sweetheart. I dreamed I could see colors, not like pictures, but like music, but with my eyes instead of my ears. Red felt warm like hugs, and blue felt cool like swimming pools, and yellow felt giggly like when Maria tells funny stories. Emily sat up in her bed. I dreamed about colors too. And I dreamed about Mommy, but she looked different, sadder, like she lost something important. Robert felt his throat tighten. Do you miss Mommy? Sometimes, Emily admitted. But Maria says some people have to go away to remember how to love properly. Maybe Mommy will figure out how to love us better while she's gone. The wisdom in his 8-year-old daughter's words left Robert speechless. As he kissed them goodnight and turned off their bedroom lights, he realized that Maria's healing was working in ways he hadn't expected. Yes, he still hoped desperately for their vision to be restored, but already his family was being transformed by something equally powerful, the return of hope, the practice of gratitude, and the daily experience of unconditional love. Walking past Maria's apartment that night, Robert saw her silhouette in the window again, but this time she wasn't alone. She appeared to be talking to someone, gesturing animatedly with her hands. The conversation looked intense, almost urgent. Who was Maria talking to at 11 p.m.? And why did Robert get the distinct impression that whatever was discussed in those late-night conversations was somehow connected to his daughter's treatment? As he fell asleep that night, Robert found himself hoping that whatever secrets Maria was keeping, they were secrets that would help rather than harm the fragile hope growing in their household. Day 10 arrived with the first hint that something extraordinary might be happening. Robert was reading financial reports in his study when he heard Emily call out from the garden in a voice filled with wonder. Daddy! Something's different! He rushed outside to find both girls standing perfectly still near Maria's herb garden, their faces turned upward toward the late-morning sun. Maria knelt beside them, her expression tense with anticipation. What is it, sweetheart? Robert asked, trying to keep his voice calm, despite his racing heart. The light, Emily whispered, her unseeing eyes focused intently on the sky. I can feel it differently today. It's not just warm on my face, it's like there's something else there. Something I've never felt before. Sophie nodded eagerly. It's like the sun is trying to show me a picture, but I can't quite see it yet. But it's there, Daddy. Something is definitely there. Robert looked to Maria, whose eyes were bright with unshed tears. She mouthed silently, It's beginning, Doctor. Morrison's rational mind insisted this was wishful thinking, that the girls were simply more aware of light and shadow due to increased attention and confidence. But his father's heart recognized something deeper was occurring, a fundamental shift in how his daughters experienced the world around them. That afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Robert answered the doorbell to find Dr. Patricia Chen, the ophthalmologist from Children's Hospital who had examined the girls 6 months earlier. She was a petite woman in her 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Dr. Chen, what brings you by?" "I hope you don't mind my dropping in unannounced, Mr. Morrison. I've been thinking about Emily and Sophie for months, and I wanted to check on how they're adjusting." Robert felt a flutter of panic. What if Dr. Chen wanted to examine the girls and discovered the herbal treatment? Would she consider it dangerous? Would she report it to Child Protective Services? "They're doing very well," he said carefully, "much happier than they were a few months ago." "I'm so glad to hear that. Would it be possible to see them? I know their prognosis was discouraging, but I've been researching some new approaches to congenital blindness, and I thought perhaps—" Before Robert could respond, Emily and Sophie came running from the backyard, following the sound of their conversation with the precision they had developed over their short lives. But something was different about the way they moved. More confident, more purposeful, as if they were navigating by more than just sound and memory. "Dr. Chen!" Sophie exclaimed with delight. "I remember your voice." Dr. Chen smiled warmly. "Hello, girls. You both look wonderful, so much more vibrant than when I last saw you." She was right, Robert realized. Both girls practically glowed with health and energy. Their faces were brighter, their postures straighter, and there was something almost luminous about their expressions. "Dr. Chen, would you like to see our gratitude circle?" Emily asked excitedly. "Maria taught us how to send love to all parts of our bodies, including our eyes." Robert felt his stomach drop, but Dr. Chen looked intrigued rather than concerned. "That sounds fascinating. Show me." And the girls led Dr. Chen to the living room, where Maria's evening ritual space remained set up from the night before. Crystals caught the afternoon sunlight, casting small rainbows across the walls, and the lingering scent of lavender candles created an atmosphere of peace and healing. "We sit in a circle," Sophie explained, settling onto her favorite cushion, "and we thank our bodies for everything they do for us, even our eyes, even though they don't see pictures like yours do." Emily joined her sister, placing her hands gently over her closed eyes. "Maria says our eyes are still beautiful and important, just different. And we're teaching them to remember how to see again." Dr. Chen sat quietly, observing as the girls demonstrated their evening practice. Robert watched her face, trying to read her expression. Was she impressed, concerned, skeptical? After the girls finished their demonstration and ran back outside to play, Dr. Chen turned to Robert with a thoughtful expression. "Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, have you noticed any changes in the girls' light sensitivity or spatial awareness recently?" Robert's mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "The way they moved through the house, how they oriented toward my voice, their confidence level. It's markedly different from 6 months ago, and their eyes." She paused, studying his face. "There's something different about their eyes. They seem more reactive to light, more focused." Before Robert could formulate an answer, Maria appeared in the doorway. "Excuse me, Senor Morrison, the girls are asking if Dr. Chen would like to stay for lunch." Dr. Chen looked at Maria with professional curiosity. "Are you working with the girls on any particular therapy program?" Maria's expression remained serene. "I am simply loving them, Doctora. Love is the most powerful medicine, no?" "Indeed it is," Dr. Chen agreed. "But love combined with proper medical care is even more effective. Mr. Morrison, I'd like to schedule a follow-up examination for the girls. There have been some promising developments in stem cell therapy for congenital blindness, And based on what I'm observing today, I think Emily and Sophie might be excellent candidates. Robert felt caught between two worlds, the medical establishment that had given up on his daughters and Maria's ancient healing practices that seemed to be creating impossible changes. We're very busy with their current routine. Perhaps in a few weeks. Dr. Chen handed him her business card. Of course, but please don't wait too long. If there's even a chance of improvement, we want to act quickly. She paused at the door. Mr. Morrison, I don't know what you've been doing differently, but whatever it is, keep doing it. Your daughters look healthier and happier than I've ever seen them. After she left, Robert found Maria in the kitchen, her expression unreadable. She noticed something, he said. Sigh, she noticed. The question is, what will you tell her when she asks to examine them in a few weeks? Robert hadn't considered this complication. If the herbal treatment actually worked, how would he explain it to the medical community? How would he protect Maria from scrutiny or potential prosecution for practicing medicine without a license? Maria, what exactly did your grandmother's journal say about people who witness these healings? Maria's eyes grew distant. She said that some miracles are meant to be shared with the world, and others are meant to be kept sacred within the family that receives them. The spirits of healing will guide us to know which is which. That night, as Robert performed his nightly check on the girls, he found them both sitting up in their beds, facing the window where moonlight streamed through the curtains. "Daddy," Emily said softly, "something beautiful is happening to us." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sophie turned toward his voice, and in the pale light, Robert could swear he saw something different in her eyes, a depth, a clarity that hadn't been there before. "We can feel things changing inside our eyes," she whispered, "like tiny flowers opening up, getting ready to bloom." Robert's hands trembled as he tucked them back into bed. Day 10 was only halfway through Maria's 21-day treatment, but already he sensed they were approaching a threshold that would change all of their lives forever. The question was, would he have the courage to cross it? Day 15 brought with it a moment that stopped Robert's world completely. He was in the kitchen, making coffee, when he heard Emily's voice from the living room, filled with an excitement he had never heard before. "Maria! Maria! Come quickly! Something's happening!" Robert dropped his mug, coffee splashing across the marble counter as he rushed toward his daughter's voice. He found Emily standing in front of the large bay window, her face pressed close to the glass, her hands flat against the pane. "What is it, Mija?" Maria asked breathlessly, having run from the laundry room. Emily's voice trembled with wonder. "The window. I can see the window." Robert felt the air leave his lungs. "What do you mean, sweetheart? Not pictures, Daddy, not like you see, but shapes, light shapes and dark shapes. The window is a big light shape and everything around it is darker." She pressed her face closer to the glass. "And there's movement outside, light shapes that move." Sophie came running from the kitchen. "Emily, what's wrong? Why is everyone shouting?" "Sophie!" Emily grabbed her sister's hand. "Come feel this. Look toward the big window with your eyes, not just your hands." Sophie positioned herself beside her twin, both girls now facing the window, where morning sunlight streamed through in brilliant rectangles. For a long moment, Sophie was quiet, concentrating intensely. Then her small face lit up with amazement. Oh, I feel it too. It's like when we listen to music, but with our eyes instead of our ears." Robert sank onto the nearest chair, his legs suddenly unable to support him. Maria knelt beside the girls, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Can you see anything else?" Maria asked gently. Emily slowly turned her head, scanning the room. "There are different kinds of light everywhere. Some warmer, some cooler, and shadows. I think I understand shadows now." Sophie giggled with pure joy. "Everything has a shape made of light. Maria, you're a light shape too, but softer than the window, warmer than the walls." Robert watched in stunned silence as his daughters experienced vision for the first time in their lives. It wasn't complete sight. They weren't identifying objects or reading faces, but they were perceiving light, shadow, and basic shapes. After 8 years of total darkness, they were beginning to see. "Is this real?" Robert whispered to Maria. "Is this actually happening?" Maria's eyes shone with tears and triumph. "My grandmother always said the first breakthrough comes at the halfway point." The eyes remember slowly, like a flower opening petal by petal. Over the next hour, Robert watched his daughters explore their newly expanding world with the wonder of explorers discovering a new continent. They moved through the house, touching objects while simultaneously experiencing them as shapes of light and shadow. But as the miracle unfolded before his eyes, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that Maria was hiding something crucial about what would happen next. Day 17 shattered Robert's world in ways he never expected. The morning started with Emily and Sophie marveling at their expanding vision, identifying more complex light patterns and even basic colors. But at 10:30 a.m. everything changed with a phone call. "Mr. Morrison, this is Detective Sarah Williams with Dallas PD. We need to speak with you about your wife, Victoria Morrison." Robert's blood turned to ice. "What about Victoria? Has something happened to her?" "Sir, we'd prefer to discuss this in person. Are you available for us to come by this morning?" Within an hour, Detective Williams sat in Robert's study with her partner, both wearing expressions that carried bad news. "Mr. Morrison, your wife was found yesterday evening in a hotel room in Austin. She appears to have taken her own life." The words hit Robert like physical blows. That's impossible. Victoria was getting help." Detective Williams handed him a sealed envelope. "She left this letter for you, sir." With trembling hands, Robert opened Victoria's final message. "My dearest Robert, by the time you read this, I'll be free from the guilt that has been destroying me for 9 years. I can't live with what I did anymore. The girl's blindness. It's my fault. During my pregnancy, I was having an affair with Dr. Marcus Webb. When you started getting suspicious, I panicked and took medication to end the pregnancy. It was too late. The pills didn't work. They just damaged the baby's developing vision. I've carried this secret for 8 years, watching our daughters pay the price for my selfishness. I can't face them anymore. Please tell Emily and Sophie that Mommy loved them. Maybe now you can all heal without my poison in your lives. Victoria." Robert read the letter 3 times before the horror sank in. Victoria's affair, her attempt to terminate the pregnancy, the medication that caused the girl's blindness. Everything he thought he knew about their family had been built on lies. After the detectives left, Maria found him in his study, still holding Victoria's letter. "Senor Morrison, the girls are asking for you. They can sense something is wrong." Robert handed her the letter with shaking hands. Maria read it silently, her expression growing grave. "You knew?" Robert whispered. "You knew there was a secret." "I suspected there was deep trauma poisoning this family. My grandmother's journal speaks of children whose blindness comes not from genetics, but from guilt and secrets that affect them even in the womb. The healing herbs can work, but only after truth comes to light." As if summoned, Emily and Sophie appeared in the doorway, their partially restored vision allowing them to navigate confidently. "Daddy," Emily said softly, "we felt something sad happen. Something about Mommy." Robert knelt to their level, struggling for words. But before he could speak, Sophie stepped forward and placed her small hand on his cheek. "Daddy, we already know. We saw her in our dreams last night. She came to say goodbye and tell us she was sorry for the sad thing she did before we were born. She said she had to go away forever so we could get better." Robert stared at his daughters in shock, but Maria seemed unsurprised. "Children touched by healing magic sometimes receive messages in dreams." "Ah," she explained quietly, Their spirits are more open than ours. That night, Robert realized Victoria's death had removed the final barrier to his daughter's healing. The secret that had poisoned their family for 8 years was finally in the light. Days 18 and 19 blurred together in funeral arrangements, grief counseling, and watching his daughter's vision improve hourly. Emily could now distinguish people by their light patterns, and Sophie had begun identifying bright colors, especially blues and yellows. The funeral was small, just Robert, the girls, Maria, and Victoria's distant relatives from Portland. Robert decided not to reveal Victoria's confession to anyone beyond Maria. Whatever she had done, she deserved dignity in death. During the service, Emily and Sophie sat quietly, occasionally whispering about colored light streaming through the church's stained glass windows. To them, the funeral seemed less about death and more about their expanding ability to perceive the world. "Daddy," Sophie whispered, leaving the cemetery. "The flowers on Mommy's grave, I can see they're bright yellow and white, like sunshine and clouds." That evening, Dr. Chen called unexpectedly. "Mr. Morrison, I heard about Victoria, and I wanted to offer my condolences. I also wanted to follow up about scheduling that examination for Emily and Sophie. Given what I observed during my visit, I really think we should document any changes." "Dr. Chen, now isn't the best time. We're grieving." "I understand. But if their vision is improving, we need to know immediately. There are research protocols, other families who might benefit from whatever intervention you've discovered." After ending the call, Robert found Maria in the garden, harvesting herbs by moonlight with unusual urgency. "Dr. Chen wants to examine the girls again. She knows something is changing." Maria paused her work. "What will you tell her?" "I don't know. If I tell her about your treatment, what happens to you? Will they take the girls for testing, call you a fraud?" Maria stood, her arms full of freshly cut herbs. "My grandmother's journal has one final entry I haven't shared. It speaks of when healing miracles must choose between hiding in shadows or stepping into light. She led him to a stone bench. Some miracles are meant to be witnessed by the world, so hope can spread to other families. Others remain sacred secrets. We ask the girls. Their spirits will know what's right." The next morning, day 20, brought dramatic change. Emily woke announcing she could see Robert's face, not clearly, but she could distinguish his features. "Daddy, you look exactly like I imagined, but also completely different," she said, tracing his face while studying him with improving vision. Sophie's breakthrough came an hour later when she looked at Maria and gasped. "Maria, you have the most beautiful golden glow around you, and your eyes are so kind. Just like I felt they would be." That afternoon, Robert asked them the crucial question. "Dr. Chen wants to examine you because she thinks your vision is getting better. If she discovers what's happening, it might mean lots of doctors wanting to study you, interviews and tests about Maria's treatment." The twins looked at each other with that silent communication. "Will it help other kids like us?" Emily asked. "It might," Robert admitted. Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "Then we should let her examine us. If Maria's medicine can help other families, we want to share it. We've been in darkness for 8 years, Daddy. We don't want other kids to stay dark if we can help them see, too." Robert felt his heart swell with pride. His daughters were ready to expose their miracle to help others. "Some miracles are meant to be shared," Emily concluded. That night, Robert called Dr. Chen and scheduled the examination, realizing their private healing journey was about to become something much larger. Day 21 arrived with golden autumn light streaming through windows, casting patterns Emily and Sophie could now see and describe in detail. Robert found them sitting on their bedroom floor, facing the sunrise, tears of joy streaming down their faces. "Daddy," Sophie called, "come look at the sun with us. It's the most beautiful thing in the whole world." Robert knelt beside his daughters as they witnessed their first sunrise, their faces radiating wonder that took his breath away. "The colors keep changing," Emily whispered, "like music, but for your eyes instead of your ears." "And look at your face in this light, Daddy," Sophie added, studying his features with newly functional vision. "You're even more handsome than Maria said you were." Maria appeared carrying the final doses of her grandmother's treatment. Over 3 weeks, Robert had watched the humble housekeeper transform into something mystical, a keeper of ancient wisdom whose love had literally restored sight to the blind. "Today is the last day," Maria announced, holding the dropper bottle. "After this morning, no more drops. Your eyes will continue healing on their own." That afternoon, Dr. Chen arrived with Dr. Sarah Kim, a specialist from Johns Hopkins. Both doctors had reviewed the girls' files and agreed any improvement would be unprecedented. What followed was the most remarkable examination Robert had ever witnessed. Emily correctly identified colors, shapes, and movements that should have been impossible for someone with congenital blindness. Sophie read letters from an eye chart that 6 months ago would have been meaningless. Both doctors worked in stunned silence. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Kim whispered. "Complete congenital blindness doesn't reverse itself. The optic nerves, neural pathways, they would need complete restructuring." Dr. Chen turned to Robert with professional bewilderment mixed with awe. "What treatment have you been giving them?" Robert looked at Maria, who nodded encouragingly. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but Maria has been treating the girls with herbal preparations from her grandmother, combined with specific dietary changes and healing rituals." Maria stepped forward with her grandmother's journal. "My grandmother was a curandera in Oaxaca. For 40 years, she successfully treated children with vision problems using traditional methods your medicine doesn't understand." Dr. Kim started to object, but Dr. Chen held up her hand. "Whatever happened is real and unprecedented. If traditional medicine achieved results conventional treatment couldn't, we need to understand how." She turned to Maria. "Would you work with our research team? Document your methods so we can study them scientifically and potentially help other children." Maria looked at Emily and Sophie, now exploring equipment with visual curiosity impossible 3 weeks earlier. "If it helps other families, yes, healing knowledge belongs to everyone." Dr. Chen nodded, excitement barely contained. "We'd like comprehensive testing at Johns Hopkins. We want to understand how their neural pathways restructured, study the mechanism of recovery. And Maria's treatment? We'll analyze every component, document preparation methods, study timing and dosage. If this works for other children, this could revolutionize how we approach congenital blindness worldwide." That evening, as doctors left with promises to call about testing arrangements, Robert stood in the garden where this journey began. Emily and Sophie ran through Maria's herbs, calling out colors they could now see, their laughter echoing across the grounds. "You're thinking about what comes next," Robert observed as Maria joined him. "Tomorrow, we step out of our private miracle into the world of science and media and people wanting to understand what cannot be easily understood. Are you ready?" Maria smiled, watching the girls chase butterflies they could finally see. "My grandmother's final words were, 'Let the light spread where it needs to go.' I think she knew this day would come." As the sun set, painting skies in colors Emily and Sophie could now witness, Robert realized their healing journey was entering its next phase, sharing their impossible miracle with a desperate world. 2 weeks later, Robert sat in a Manhattan television studio preparing for Good Morning America. The story had exploded across social media after Johns Hopkins released preliminary findings. The girls' optic nerves had regenerated in ways contradicting everything medical science understood about congenital blindness. We'll be live in 5 minutes, the producer announced. Keep it simple. Focus on human elements. Viewers want to understand how this feels, not medical details. Emily and Sophie sat calmly in matching blue dresses, remarkably composed for 8-year-olds about to appear on national television. Their vision had continued improving. They could now read, recognize faces across rooms, and navigate completely unfamiliar environments. Maria waited in the green room for the second segment. She'd spent the week at Johns Hopkins working with research teams while chemists analyzed her herbal preparations. Initial results were promising. Several compounds showed unexpected effects on neural regeneration in laboratory studies. "Are we really going to help other kids see?" Emily whispered, as studio lights brightened. "That's the hope, sweetheart. By sharing our story, maybe other families will have hope too." The interview began with hosts expressing amazement at the transformation, showing before and after photos documenting their journey from complete blindness to functional vision. Robert told their story simply: the devastating diagnosis, his wife's abandonment, Maria's proposal, and the miraculous results. But when hosts spoke directly to Emily and Sophie, the true power became clear. "Sophie, what's the most beautiful thing you've seen since your vision returned?" Sophie thought, then smiled with 8-year-old wisdom. "My daddy's face when he's happy. He has little crinkles around his eyes I never knew about, and they get deeper when he smiles really big." "Emily, what would you say to other children who can't see?" Emily looked directly into the camera. "I'd tell them being blind taught me to hear people's hearts, not just voices. Now that I can see, I still listen to hearts first, because that tells you more than faces. Also, miracles are real. But sometimes they take longer than you want." The interview concluded with an announcement that Johns Hopkins was launching clinical trials to study Maria's treatment, funded by a foundation Robert had established. Families with blind children could participate at no cost, with Maria consulting to ensure traditional methods were properly honored. After the show, walking through Times Square, Emily and Sophie stopped frequently to marvel at the visual feast. Massive digital billboards, rivers of yellow taxis, endless variety of faces and colors. "It's like the whole world is a rainbow," Sophie observed, spinning to take in the 360-degree spectacle. Returning to Dallas that evening, they found a small crowd outside their mansion. Families with blind children who had driven from across Texas and neighboring states, hoping to meet the man whose daughters had experienced the impossible. Robert found himself face to face with parents carrying stories mirroring his journey. A mother from Houston, whose 5-year-old son had been blind since birth. A father from Oklahoma whose twin daughters faced the same diagnosis that once sealed Emily and Sophie's fate. "Mr. Morrison," one father said, tears streaming, "we've been praying for a miracle for 3 years when we saw your daughters this morning. It's the first time we've had hope that wasn't wishful thinking." Robert remembered his own anguish and felt the weight of responsibility that came with receiving a miracle. Emily and Sophie weren't just healed, they'd become symbols of possibility for thousands of families worldwide living in darkness. Clinical trials start in 6 weeks. Robert told the families, "Your hope isn't wishful thinking, it's the beginning of something that could change everything." That night, tucking his daughters into bed, Emily said, "Mommy visited me in another dream. She said she could see us clearly for the first time, and we look exactly like she hoped. She's not sad anymore because her mistake turned into something beautiful that will help lots of kids." Robert felt tears burn his eyes. Perhaps Victoria's tragedy had served a purpose, removing the final barrier to healing, spreading hope worldwide. "Do you think we'll help all blind kids see?" Emily asked. "I don't know, sweetheart. But we're going to try with everything we have." "Good," Sophie added sleepily, "because everyone deserves to see rainbows." Their miracle was just beginning. 3 months after Good Morning America, Robert stood in Johns Hopkins research facility watching Dr. Chen examine the 15th child, showing significant vision improvement through Maria's protocol. Clinical trials had exceeded expectations. Of the first 20 children enrolled, 12 showed measurable progress, and 3 achieved vision restoration comparable to Emily and Sophie's recovery. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Chen said, joining him at the observation window, "we've now treated 47 children from 6 countries. Success rate holds steady at 60%. Robert's heart raced. 60% meant dozens of children emerging from darkness. What about the other 40%? Some show partial improvement, enhanced light sensitivity, basic shape recognition. Only 15% show no response." Dr. Chen studied her tablet. "But here's what's fascinating. The children who respond best share certain characteristics, such as strong family support, parents demonstrating unconditional love despite blindness, and households where someone, usually the mother or primary caregiver, shows deep, intuitive faith in the healing process." Through the window, they watched 6-year-old Michael Torres from Phoenix successfully identify colors for the first time. His parents wept as their son described the beautiful blue sky he could now see. Maria had become a celebrity in the medical world, traveling between Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and European research hospitals to train teams in her grandmother's methods. But she always returned to Dallas, to the Morrison mansion that had become unofficial headquarters for what media called the Highland Park Miracle Protocol. "There's something else," Dr. Chen continued. "We've been contacted by the World Health Organization. They want to establish treatment centers in developing countries where traditional healing practices are more readily accepted alongside modern medicine." Robert's attention was drawn to movement in the corridor. Emily and Sophie, now 9 with nearly normal vision, walked past leading a group of blind children new to the program. The girls insisted on meeting every family enrolling, sharing their experience and offering encouragement. "Uncle Robert," called 8-year-old Lisa Chen, using the title all program children had adopted. "Emily taught me how to feel colors with my fingers before I can see them." Lisa had been completely blind until starting the protocol 6 weeks ago. Now she could distinguish light from dark and was beginning to see basic shapes. She guided Robert's hand across red and blue books, demonstrating the tactile technique Emily and Sophie had developed. "Seeing is like learning a new language," Emily had told her. "You practice every day, and it's okay to make mistakes while learning." The Morrison mansion had been converted into a guest house, research center, and healing retreat for trial families. Robert hired additional staff to help Maria manage constant visitors, but the core remained unchanged, children receiving treatments in an atmosphere of love, hope, and absolute faith in their healing potential. That evening, Emily brought Robert a handwritten letter from Kenya, 10-year-old Amara, whose parents had seen their story online and were requesting help for their daughter's blindness. The family had no money for travel, but asked if herbs could be sent with instructions. "Why can't we help her?" Emily asked. "It's complicated. Herbs need to be fresh, properly prepared, and treatment requires supervision for safety." Sophie appeared in the doorway. "What if Maria went there? What if we brought treatment to kids who can't come here?" Robert looked at his daughters, amazed by their compassion. They had transformed from miracle recipients to miracle ambassadors, inspiring everyone with their dedication to helping other children experience sight. "Actually, that's not a bad idea. What if we established treatment centers in other countries, places where Maria could train local healers?" Emily clapped excitedly, "like a worldwide family helping kids see." The next morning, Robert called Dr. Chen with a proposal to expand globally, using his connections and fortune to establish healing centers in Kenya, Guatemala, India, and the Philippines. places where traditional medicine was respected, and blind children often had no access to conventional treatments. "This isn't just about medicine anymore," Dr. Chen said after a long pause. "You're talking about creating a global network of hope for families who've given up." "Yes," Robert replied simply. "That's exactly what I'm proposing." 2 weeks later, Maria boarded a plane to Nairobi with Robert and the girls, carrying preserved herb samples and her grandmother's journal, now translated into multiple languages. Their mission: establish the first international Highland Park Miracle Protocol Center. As their plane lifted off, Emily pressed her face to the window, marveling at views impossible to imagine a year earlier. "Look how small everything looks, but also connected, like roads and buildings are part of one big picture," Robert smiled. Understanding his daughter had just described their mission perfectly. What began as desperate hope for two blind girls had become part of something larger, a global healing network connecting families, cultures and continents in shared belief that love could overcome what seemed permanently broken. The miracle was no longer just theirs. It belonged to the world. 1 year later, Robert stood on the Kennedy Center stage in Washington, D.C., addressing medical professionals, government officials, and families transformed by what was now officially called the Morrison-Gonzalez Protocol for Vision Restoration. Behind him, a world map displayed red pins, each representing a treatment center where Maria's grandmother's wisdom combined with modern oversight to restore sight to once hopeless children. 18 months ago, my daughters were completely blind. My wife had abandoned our family, and I had exhausted every medical option, Robert began. Today, we have successfully restored functional vision to over 300 children across 15 countries. The audience erupted in applause, but Robert's attention fixed on the front row where Emily and Sophie, now 10, sat beside Maria, all wearing matching smiles of accomplishment. The twins had become unofficial ambassadors, traveling to centers, appearing at conferences, inspiring families to believe in impossible possibilities. But this evening isn't about statistics or breakthroughs. It's about a simple truth my family learned in our darkest hour. Healing requires more than herbs or surgery or technology. It requires love that refuses limitations, faith that survives disappointments, and communities supporting each other through impossible circumstances. The screen showed photographs from various centers. Amara from Kenya, now attending regular school. Michael from Phoenix, whose paintings showed remarkable color understanding. Lisa Chen, learning to read standard text and wanting to become a doctor. Each child represents a family that refused to give up, a community rallying around healing and convergence of ancient wisdom with modern understanding. But most importantly, each represents the power of one person's love to change the world. Robert looked directly at Maria, whose weathered face glowed with satisfaction, seeing her grandmother's legacy touch lives globally. Over the year, she had trained 47 healers in 15 countries, established sustainable herb supplies, and created family support networks. Dr. Elena Gonzalez died in a small Oaxacan village 40 years ago, never knowing her healing knowledge would restore sight to children on 5 continents. But her granddaughter Maria kept that wisdom alive, and when our family needed a miracle, she was brave enough to offer something science couldn't explain. He paused, emotion catching his voice. Maria didn't just heal my daughter's eyes. She taught us that miracles aren't rare occurrences reserved for the lucky few. They're the natural result when unconditional love meets unwavering faith and refuses to accept that any situation is truly hopeless. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. As applause faded, Emily and Sophie joined their father on stage. "We want to say something," Emily announced, taking the microphone with 10-year-old confidence. "A year ago, we couldn't see anything. Now we can see colors, faces, sunsets and rainbows. But the most beautiful thing we learn to see is hope in other people's eyes when they realize miracles are real. Sophie nodded. We used to think being blind was the worst thing that could happen to us. Now we know it was preparing us to help other kids find their light. Sometimes the hardest things in your life are actually getting you ready for the most important things you'll ever do. As the Morrison family left the stage together, Robert reflected on their incredible journey. Victoria's tragic secret had nearly destroyed them, but it had also cleared the path for healing that touched hundreds of lives worldwide. Maria's humble faith had sparked a revolution in treating childhood blindness, and his daughters, who had spent 8 years in darkness, were now lighting the way for families around the globe. Walking through Washington's illuminated streets, Emily stopped suddenly and grabbed Robert's hand. "Daddy, do you know what the most amazing part of our story is?" "Tell me, sweetheart." "It's not that we can see now. It's that we learned blind people, and seeing people both have the same job, helping other people find their way to the light." Robert squeezed his daughter's hands, understanding that their miracle was still growing, still spreading, still proving that love combined with faith could indeed heal what seemed permanently broken. The Highland Park miracle had become something far greater than restored vision. It had become proof that no family's darkness was too deep for love to illuminate, no child's condition too hopeless for healing to reach, and no dream too impossible for faith to achieve. Their story was complete, but their mission had just begun.